Hi, this is Chantal from Be Inspired. I've been meaning to do this video for a long time because the main question, or the most asked question, is about needles. So I started stocking HiyaHiya Needles probably about 5 years ago. They are my favorite needles, and I have now my old stock that I have of Knit Pro, tulips, Kinky Amabari, etc. Those have mostly been on sale and sold out, and I have started focusing in the last year or 2 years solely on HiyaHiya. So for those that don't know, HiyaHiya are they are made in China. It's a family business. The knitter who started and designed the HiyaHiyas, she couldn't find what she needed or what she liked. Things weren't suitable for her, so she started making her own needles. So these are made for knitters, by knitters. So the tips, the interchangeable tips come in both the steel and in bamboo. Bamboo, you get the 4-inch tips, which are the short tips. You can see how short they are. And then you get the 5-inch, which are a bit longer. People that hold needles like I do, let me grab something to show you. I've got a million projects here to show you how you use these needles. But I hold my needle over the top like that. So I find the short tips are great for me. And also if I'm knitting something small, like a small neck or a mitten or a sleeve, the shorter tips are much better. The long tips just make that circle a bit awkward. For people that hold their needles like this, then the longer tipped, the 5-inch longer tips are better if you're resting them on your hand. Although if you hold it like that, the short ones also work because they do have this join here. So it would also work, but it might be more comfortable for the long. So I do stock most sizes in both the long and the short. The cables, as you can see, are extremely flexible, and they also swivel over here. So because of that swiveling, as you're knitting, you don't have the cable sticking up in your face. Other brands, I found that as I was knitting, this cable would be up in my face and it would just be uncomfortable. Plus they would untwist. But with the swivel, it sort of stops that from happening. You do have to tighten them. You only use the silver bit to tighten. You don't hold it here, you hold on the silver. And you can buy a little set of rubber grips. They don't put the grips in with every needle because that's just wasteful. You can buy a little set of rubber grips. I think they're 30 or 35 rand, and that you can just grip to close. Alternative, if you've got those little pins, you can put that into the hole and also use it as a lever. This little hole, if you can see that little hole, is very handy if you're putting in a lifeline, because you can thread a piece of yarn through. Then as you knit and the yarn or the needle goes through your work, it puts a piece of yarn into your work, which is your lifeline. So if you ever have to rip back, you can rip back to that lifeline. So that's what that little hole is for. Obviously, if I'm knitting something and I need to change to a different size, it's so easy to just unscrew the needle from the cable and add a different size on. Also, if you're a multiple project knitter like me and you need these needles, you can get little stoppers that you can put on, which I'll show you just now. And those little stoppers then keep your work on your stitches on your cable while you use the needle for something else. So interchangeables are great. People ask me, do I always use circulars? Yes, I do. Long straight needles for me are not functional enough. This, if you look, I can put this into my work bag and it's not going to get broken. I used to love long wooden needles and they used to break constantly because people used to sit on them. So these are very easy to travel with. Also, if you're flying, you unscrew this and you just put your needles, these little bamboo needles, in with a couple of pens and pencils, and normally you don't get asked any questions, and you can pop them onto your cable on the plane and carry on knitting. Okay, so those are the tips. So I also find when people order from me, they're often, even though it is in the description, they often order the wrong cable. This cable is for up to a 5 and including a 5 millimeter, When you get to the bigger sizes, 5.5 and above, then you use a bigger cable. So you can see the difference in the cable here. It's quite a big difference. Obviously these needles are thin, so they've got this nice thin joining or connector, and these big fat needles, you can see that is way more suited. So just make sure that when you are ordering the 5.5 and above, you're getting the large cables. They are split on my website, and these are the small cables. So you can see the difference. And I normally check if you order small needles and you've got big cables, I normally do say something. So that's why the cables are different sizes, just to enable that to be a more of a smooth transition. So those are the cables and the bamboo tips and the steel tips. If you have a whole lot of small needles and small cables and you want to now get a big pair of needles, you don't need to then buy all new cables. There is an adapter. So this screws onto your big needle, and then you can use a small cable with it. So those are the cable adapters. So that's that. I just want to show you something else on a jersey I'm knitting. If you are knitting something, some people want to, oh, I'm losing stitches. Oh, no, I'm not. Some people start with a really long cable and want to do a really little neck with it. So then a magic loop is where you just go and you can pull through part of the cable. Obviously then that makes your circle, your circular bit smaller. So you can pull that through. It's called a magic loop. So these cables are really flexible to do that. I find other cables are a bit too chunky and too thick, and they don't want to just pull through like that. So that's if you have a really long cable, like 120 centimeters, and you need to take your circumference down to say 50 or 60 centimeters for a neck. Also, when I get to the ribbing on these, I will just obviously unscrew and put on my ribbing needles, so I don't have to change anything else. Here's a little sleeves that I've got on hold. Just move all this yarn. So I put my sleeves onto a short cable. They're sitting on the cable waiting for me to finish knitting, and then I'll go and I'll join my needles back up and start knitting. These little pandas are really cute. The small ones have been out of stock. I've got the large ones, and they're also little glass stoppers. Here's the little glass stoppers. I have the small glass stoppers in stock. So those are to put on your cable to hold stitches, or if you want to use your needles for a different project. So that's that. Then what my favorite invention with them, with HiyaHiya, or not invention, is, or like a type or technique, are these really short circular needles. So they're 9 inches. I know some people have gone into shops and asked for short 9-inch circular needles, and they've been told there's no such thing that exists, but there very clearly is. I knit all of my socks on these small circulars. So here you can see a little sock in progress. So magic loop is not for me. I don't want to spend half my time pulling out a long loop for the sock. So I simply knit my socks on these. And yes, they do feel really little in the beginning, but once you get used to them, you actually won't use anything else. Your hands do have to get used to knitting like this. They do, or will hurt. The muscles in your hand will hurt until they are used to it. I can now knit socks constantly every night or weekend, and my hands do not hurt anymore. So those are the little short circulars. You can even use them right up into your heel. So this entire sock so far I have knitted with these little short bamboo circulars. I managed to put stitches on hold on the needle and knit a heel flap and a heel turn. The only time I'm going to have to do anything else, anything different, is when I get to the toe. And that is when the flyers come into play. Now these are flyers. They are flexible DPNs. So I'll show you that. So obviously when you have so few stitches, you will need flyers, because you cannot fit that on a 9-inch circular. So this toe is actually ready to kitchener. So once I start decreasing and I have too few stitches, I switch them to flyers. Different to your traditional DPNs, because traditional DPNs, in order to work comfortably, I would need 1, 2, 3, 4 and a fifth one to knit. But because these are flexible and you can create a little circle with them, you only need 3. So 2 on in your needles and 1 to knit. So those are the flyers. The smaller sizes come with 4 needles, obviously, to go if you have to go around a bigger circumference. Some people knit their whole sock on this, some people knit sleeves on this. I use these to knit my sleeves as well. They come in slightly bigger sizes. And then your big flyers, your bigger size needle flyers, they come with just 3. So I'm trying to slowly get all of the sizes, however sometimes out of stock and I can't always get them, but I have ordered some more flyers, so bamboo steel and in different sizes. So that's what you do with your flyers when you have only a few stitches. They're also great for when you are making hats and you're starting at the crown. I didn't have flyers for this hat or in the right size, so I'll show you what I have done. I have used 2 small circulars. So here's one set and here's a second set, and I managed to start with 8 stitches and I've managed to get to here on these 2 circulars. Obviously if you had a third one it would be easier, but now what I would do is I would take this one and I would carry on knitting around there. So it is possible to use 2 small circulars to make the start of a hat. So these ones I think are 4.5, and they're also 9-inch circumference. So they are the same as, where are they? The same as these, just a little bit chunkier and bamboo. So those also work. What else did I want to show you? Oh, these are just my sock needles that I use. And there's your flyers. So I use these all the time. Good to have a whole selection of them. Obviously with bigger projects like this one that I'm busy working on now, it's got 4 different sides. So I have 4 different cables. I have 2 long ones on each side, and then I have 2 short ones. And I just wanted to show you, if you don't have the little stoppers, what you can do is put a safety pin through that little hole and it won't go through your stitches. And what I also do is I'll safety pin together. Let me show you here. Sorry, all my yarns got twisted around, but I've safety pinned 3 cables together so my stitches are safe. So I hope that helps you when you are choosing your HiyaHiyas. If you have any more questions, then you can just shout. Have a good day.